Hey everyone! So as some of you know, I was in the hospital recently and I'm making this video partially as a public service announcement, and I will tell you the story why. I do have a bad tendency to doom scroll. I know, shame on me. And 5 to 6 weeks ago, I happened to pause on a post that said Frank's sign or Frank's syndrome, and I don't know why I stopped on it because it's something I would normally scroll past. However, I decided to look it up and I Googled it to corroborate it, just because, you know, sometimes things on Facebook or Instagram don't always align with the real world. So Frank's sign or Frank's syndrome actually is an indicator, or potentially an indicator, of heart issues or cardiovascular issues. And its hallmark trait is having little creases or like a wrinkle in your earlobe. So I didn't think much of it, kept scrolling. You know, a couple weeks later, I looked in the mirror and my second piercing, the second hole, looked a little inflamed in the mirror, and I was like, oh, that's weird, because I don't wear earrings. I haven't worn them in years. I have a metal allergy. So anyhow, as I'm looking at it, I notice a very faint crease. And then I look at the other side, and there's also a very faint crease. And I kind of remember in the back of my head, I'm like, didn't that mean something? So I Googled creases in the ear, and again, the Frank sign came up. So I used my iCardiac app on my iPhone, which I can use to measure my heart rate, and I upgraded the version for the week just to kind of get the augmented experience or advanced report. And I used the AI chat with the doctor along with the symptoms that I had, and it said to go ahead and book an appointment. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a far reach. I don't want to be a hypochondriac, and I hate going to the doctor as it is because I go enough for all my psych stuff. So anyhow, my doctor's booked 3 weeks out. In the interim, I also need to get a referral for my spine still, because I still have issues from my back that I broke 20 years ago, and just degenerative disease and all that, and a couple other little issues. So I need a referrals for that. And so I had also had a fiasco with my psychiatrist, the one who does meds, not psychology. They don't accept my insurance anymore, so I had to get a new psychiatrist. So I saw the new psychiatrist last Monday, and I have an issue with a movement disorder called tardive dyskinesia. Pronunciation I kind of mess up all the time, so excuse me. However, it's caused by antipsychotics, which is used to treat my bipolar disorder, and I haven't been on meds for a while because we can't seem to find anything that agrees with me without major debilitating side effects. So we have a game plan in place to try to use injectable medication because it bypasses a lot of the organs and potentially can eliminate some of those nasty side effects. However, I have to orally titrate up to 15 milligrams of Abilify. So they started me on 2 milligrams to see if I can handle it. So I took that medication Monday night, and I have my doctor's appointment the next day, Tuesday. And by that time, I had already chickened out on mentioning Frank's sign. I was like, oh, I'll just get the back recommendation, blah, blah, blah. So I'm in there, and about 5 minutes before the doctor walks in, I start twitching, and that's part of the movement disorder, and it was getting really extreme, and it looks kind of like, you know, this is, you know, me emulating it. And it's more concentrated on my left side, and it was getting really tight in my chest and radiating down my left arm. And I've had some chest tightness in the past and chest pains, and I notice it every so often, but I get panic attacks. So it's really hard for me to determine what's what with all of my comorbid diagnosis or whatever they are. So my blood pressure was a little bit elevated for me. Mine's usually pretty consistent at like 110/70 or 120/80, somewhere in that range, but it's always in range. So I was slightly elevated, and the doctor's just looking at me in distress with her medical student shadowing her. And she's like, "You need an EKG. Let me go check if it's too late here at the university." And it was, and she's like, "You need to go to the ER." And I do not like going to the ER. I have been to the ER for other things, and I don't like going. So I was able to kind of compose myself enough to get myself there, and they did an EKG, and they admitted me, and the doctor comes in, and he's like, "Well, the AI on the EKG said, it looks like there might have been a past heart attack, but it's the AI, it's probably just a little spoof or whatever." And I'm like, okay, that's fair. It's a little weird, but I have had instances where it felt kind of like I might have been having a heart attack, but I thought it was a panic attack. So it could have been a silent one. Or I talked to somebody today, my caseworker, she said I could be passing small blood clots through. So that leads me to, I have a pulmonary embolism. It's in my chest on the left side. I also have a nodule that needs to be checked, but that's beside the point. The main focus right now is the pulmonary embolism. And they, of course, had to monitor me and start doing all their blood tests and whatnot. And I posted on Facebook that I had a pulmonary embolism, and I was kind of just joking around like, "Oh, I got a staycation in the hospital, yay." It wasn't really a sympathy draw, but it was just kind of like, all right, here I am. So the moral of the story with that is, a relative messaged me and let me know that I need to be tested for Factor VIII hyperactivity. And what that means is, it's a little more obscure, but it is a predisposition for blood clots. And it is genetic, and it's a high likelihood to pass on, hereditarily to your siblings, your children, grandchildren. There's a very high percentage. So I tried to tell the nurse to test for it, tell the doctor. I told 2 nurses, it didn't get relayed, and they'd already taken about 8 vials of blood. And finally, before they discharged me, after putting me on some blood thinners, they took one more blood draw, because I finally was able to speak to the doctor, and I showed her the message and said, "Can you please test for this?" Well, it turns out I tested off the charts for these Factor VIII hyperactivity. So I've also been on birth control for 30 years and had recently started hormonal replacement therapy, because I am going into perimenopause, fun. And both of those hormone prescriptions are very, they do have a blood clotting attributed to them. They can cause blood clots, and it increases your risk. So that, combined with the fact that I have a very high predisposition to get blood clots, was probably not the best idea. So it's important to tell your family if you have certain types of hereditary genetic issues that could impact them, because I probably wouldn't have stayed on birth control for 10 years. But fortunately we caught it in time. I was lucky, and there were some signs that I kind of see with my little woo-woo stuff here, that told me I would be okay. Just to touch on that, I see the number 4 everywhere. Some people think it's weird. Some people who have been around me will start seeing it too. Some people just think I'm nuts. I don't care either way. It's fine. But when I was leaving the hospital, or I'm sorry, the primary care, the first license plate that I noticed that like passed in front of me said 444. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be okay. And then when I got to the hospital, my EKG, like one of the main testing numbers on it, said 444. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to live. There's something going on, but I'm going to live. So you're probably wondering what all this stuff is here. So I never really believed in all of this crystals and spiritual stuff. You know, I mean, I was open-minded to it, but I was like, okay, are the crystals really going to help me? You know, that kind of thing. But more recently, I have had some other weird stuff going on. So my care team didn't think it would be a bad idea to have stuff to kind of help ground whatever it is that's around, and just call me crazy. But I guess there is something to it in the world. So, and I've personally seen it. I see it a lot. It's just, you know, it's just one of those things that some people don't believe in. And, you know, I wasn't as much of a believer as I am now. And I've been developing this more over the years. Like I've always had kind of I don't know, sixth sense, seventh sense, really. I don't know what sense you want to number it these days. They found humans have so many anyhow, but that's another rabbit hole. But I have my little crystals that I spread throughout the house. And I feel like the fact that I paused on that post for Frank's sign, like there was a reason that happened there, because there was a certain feeling behind it. Like it was in the back of my mind. Like, could it really be? It's like, this is just way too out there for it to be a reality. And thank goodness I stopped on that post and happened to notice the crease. And here I am on blood thinners and have more doctor's appointments for follow-up to figure out the next steps. But yeah, I'm just happy that we caught it in time, because it could have traveled to my heart. You know, these things are deadly. The doctor even said, I've seen a lot of people die from these. And I was like, oh, cool, great. So anyhow, I'm glad to be here. There definitely is a greater force out there, greater energy, something that, you know, you can't always necessarily see. But it's, you know, there is something out there. At least I believe that. That's my belief. So anyhow, good to see you guys, and take care. Be safe out there. Bye.